What is the most fked up thing you saw someone do in a public place? Saw a coworker take off his shoe and sock, pull up his foot, and bite his toenails during a work meeting at the office. Saw a young lady in line in front of me that apparently pre-partied for the show. It was a planetarium and passed out on her feet. She fell to the side of the line rather than into someone behind her, and her head hit the floor first with a nauseating crack, and then she went into convulsions. I don't know how she fared after the ambulance loaded her onto a stretcher, but thought about that many times. I once saw a homeless man rinse his mouth out with water from the windshield cleaning bucket at a gas station. I used to deliver janitorial supplies to businesses. Part of my route was in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. It's basically zombie land there and the whole neighborhood is filthy. IDK how people can even live there. Needless to say, I've seen a lot. But the one thing I saw that really stuck with me was seeing a naked man covered in his own excrement and eating it. He was clearly very disturbed. No one paid him any mind either. It was surreal. A scary-ass woman was yelling at people in a store. The manager told her to leave. She screamed insults at him as security escorted her out. When I left the store, she was still screaming at him. He was blocking her from going back into the store. Then she did something I never thought I'd see in my entire life. She reached into her pants, pulled out a bloody tampon and threw it at the manager. She missed, but it stuck to the glass door. She laughed as she ran off. I wanted to vomit. God damn it, fucking holy shit. I never want to see anything like that again. I was working in a building under construction. One morning, we look across the street and watch a homeless lady jump from a 6-story parking garage and hit the street below. 21st B-Day at a festival in FL called Langeredu. Was incredibly drunk, but I'll never forget. So, we're listening to a band called Humphreys McGee and everyone is having a good time. All is well. Heaven on earth. Until I turn around. There's a guy, late 30s or early 40s by himself, and he was having quite a time. He kept shoving his hand up his ass and licking his fingers afterwards. At some point he started chasing people and then some poor souls working security had to deal with him. Saw a kid follow around a toad at a state park for a bit, pick it up, and ground it against a tree, eviscerating it in an instant. An adult immediately grabbed them and took them off, yelling as the kid didn't look bothered by the interaction at all. It was surreal and disturbing. At a bike rally in Alabama in the 90s. Woman. Butt-ass naked. Bent over a picnic table. Getting nailed. Next to a sign that said trying to get pregnant. Shoot your shot. Line of 10 guys. I passed right on by that one. Smoke what I can only assume was crack out of a broken light bulb, on a public bus during the day. Take a shit in the street in Paris. In Hungary it was quite big news that a random guy walked in an underpass and started giving a BJ to a passed-out homeless alcoholic guy. The FKED up thing was that someone took a video of it and everyone saw the video. I was outside of a hospital visiting a friend. He was smoking. A homeless man asked him for a cigarette and my friend said no, so the homeless man stuck his hand in the butt tray and jammed a handful into his mouth and chewed as he walked away. We looked at each other in silence and he finally said, "Well, I would have given him one if I knew he was going to do that." A woman at my old retail job I used to work at came in dry heaving to our restroom. It sounded like she was about to give birth. Nope, much worse. She goes into our restroom and shits all over the stalls, the floor, it's coated. It became a complete swamp. This woman proceeds to then take off all her clothes, and leave it there. She walks out of the store nude, screaming. I saw one homeless guy shit on another sleeping homeless guy. The sleeping hobo threw the shit at the first guy, then they fought. Slap their wife and punch her in front of the kids. Dude passed out, pants down, with a needle in his arm, a kitchen knife laying next to him. Outside of a high school. Woman recording a mother and her 2 children after the mother collapsed and was unresponsive in a Costco. Asked her to stop, she looked at me and scowled, so I amplified my request, which was stop recording, you completely demented, bitch, and the immediate unfavorable attention that got her compelled her to stop. The woman who collapsed, her small children were terrified, screaming and crying, and it was awful. Can't imagine why you would want footage of such a thing. Just remembering makes me sad and hope that everything turned out all right. I've lost count of the number of times I've seen a homeless man yanking it in public in New York City. Most fucked up thing is probably public sex between 11-12-year-olds on a train. Many people who saw that happen left a piece of their soul on the F train. So a guy tried to kidnap a little girl at the fair once. The mom started yelling for help. He punched her and tried to run away with the girl. She wiggled free and he tried to flee. I caught him with a clothesline that would have made Hulk Hogan proud. He never saw it coming. The police were there in minutes. We kept the guy there until they arrived. Roofie a girl's drink, no subtlety, just dropped it right in. When confronted, he pleaded with the line, "Come on, she is really hot and would never give me a chance," or something close to that. Only time I've ever beaten a man with no care for him at all. Hopefully he hasn't done it again. Saw a van pull up to an armored truck loading money into an ATM. Dudes hopped out of the van and started shooting at the guard immediately. The other guy hopped out of the armored truck and returned fire. The other guard was shot and lying on the ground. The criminals hopped back in the van and started fleeing. They hit a parked car and then caused another car to drive up on the curb to avoid them. This all happened in about 30 seconds. I was laying under my work truck for a few minutes until I knew I was in the clear. I took the rest of the day off and drove home. Fucked up in terms of terrible. I saw a guy beating his wife one time in front of their kids. Like actually beating, not the slap here or there, he was punching her, kicking her on the ground. Fucking awful. Fucked up in terms of gross. Louisville, Kentucky. Saw a guy just pull his pants down in the middle of a Walmart parking lot and just start taking a dump. It was disgusting. Not me, but my dad saw a woman at the store say to her, "Probably 2-month-old baby, I'm gonna beat your ass if you don't stop," because the baby was being a baby and being curious, reaching out and grabbing things. Seen the aftermath of a motorcyclist vs a light pole guide wire. 2 halves of a body laying on the roadway. I also saw my son take his last breath after birth. He had several medical conditions that were diagnosed during pregnancy, so his prognosis was not good. Freshman year in college, we were walking home from breakfast and there was a tour of potential students walking by us. I heard a rustling in the bushes, and this guy stands up and yawns. Scratches himself, one eye open, and as he stretches he is looking around to get his bearings. Bends down, picks up his jacket, and proceeds to head off, him now assuming, to home. I laugh as 3 parents grab their kids and shuffle them out of the tour. Tour guide was just like, WTF. I once saw photos of some dude receiving a blowy on a water taxi in Venice. His butt crack was out and everything. Wild. Earlier in the day, there was a guy walking around naked high as balls on acid, masturbating with one hand and thumb up his butt the other. Later in the day, watched a dude sit down under a floodlight, stare up into it and completely fade. He was ODing and I had to run to get help. I stopped going to EDM fests after all that. Saw a guy who I later found out was a level 3 sex offender fall from the 11th story of my building while being taken into custody by parole. Heard a big bang as the screen was knocked out, looked out the window just in time to see him splat in the parking lot, handcuffed and all. Unfortunately, I can picture it like it was yesterday. Official story was that he was caught living in a building with kids and did a runner after being cuffed, but only those 2 cops will ever know how it really went down. I saw a guy metal detecting in a graveyard. Watched someone slice their wrists on the Atlantic City boardwalk. I missed it by a week, but I started a job in a warehouse whose loading dock was in an alley in a not super great neighborhood in San Francisco. I was told that the week before I started, 2 homeless dudes took turns injecting heroin into each other's penises in full view of the open loading dock and everyone working inside. I never saw anything remotely as interesting as that while working there, and a few months later the company moved the warehouse across the bay to Emeryville. Guy was fishing but a duck ate his hook. He reeled the duck in, grabbed it by its neck and started slamming it against a tree until it died. So a crackhead tried to kick a little girl, literally just got off the bus and swung his foot